Hello, hello, Jalia Pettis here. Thank you for tuning into the Style Exhibition visual podcast today. I am excited to introduce you all to our guest for this episode. Of course, I have to make sure that I am continually bringing you creative entrepreneurs across not only the US, but across the globe. We'll get there eventually. But I have the immense pleasure of introducing you all to Miss Viola Nicholson. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. I am so excited. I am such a big fan of yours. You are blazing trails for the vets and the new and the
I
future.
appreciate that. I truly appreciate that. But we're not going to talk about me. We're going to talk about you. We're going to blow you up. We're going to talk about everything that you got going on. Because for those that don't know, Miss Viola, and we say Miss Viola out of respect for the wisdom and the knowledge that she has carved into her creative expertise. So can you kind of just share with everybody a little bit about what it is that you do, how long you've been doing it, and just kind of give us a little bit of your personal backstory?
Well, I am a makeup artist. Yeah, and it's now where everyone now is a makeup artist, but they have to understand how did it come for so many of us women of color to be in this industry. And it all goes back to, I would say, oh my goodness, from the beginning of time, including my mother, who was born 1939. And then that generation taught me makeup, taught me how to glam myself, taught me how to carry myself, taught me how to be dignified. So we want to move into my generation where there is the 1990s to early 90s. Now, mind you, even in 1991, 1992, when I started doing makeup, I had to learn how to do makeup because back in 1991, 1992, they didn't have that many Black makeup artists offered the service to do print models. So I was a fashion print model. The makeup artists, they were all white. And even the photographers really didn't know how to shoot us at that time. While my white counterparts, they were tan. They were doing all the tanning. And so they had to make the lighting for them, but not for Black models. So it was so important to have my mother, who was a hairdresser back in her day, who also knew how to do makeup, had to go to the stores at Fashion Fair. There were only one counter that were carrying Fashion Fair when I moved to Portland, Oregon. So, Portland, Oregon is predominantly white. And I grew up in Southside Chicago. Okay. So that was a very transitional culture change for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So, right. It just so happened that I was so glad that I had strong background roots, and that came from my parents. And so while she was shopping for makeup for me, like, she had to really teach the women at the makeup counters how to shade match. I was wearing Borghese. They didn't even know they had colors to shades for us at that time. So all the new makeup artists and all the artists now probably never heard of Borghese makeup. I was a number 8 in that foundation. I would never forget. It was one of those luxurious brands. And then even from doing my own makeup, and I was a nursing student, by the way. So while I was in nursing school, I was modeling part-time, but I also had the opportunity to work for one of my favorite brands, which we all grew up, was Fashion Fair. So the photographer shared to me, you need a job. Actually, you do makeup better than anyone here. Wow. You should pursue that. And I said, ooh, I always wanted to do makeup because I used to always hang out. At the time, in the 90s, the mall was where the place to be at.
Yes, it was.
I wanted to do Nordstrom's and those stores such as like Marshall Fields, all those classic jam stores, department stores where everyone looked so beautiful. And they had integrity at that time. Everyone was polished. So I used to hang out at the makeup counters all the time. You should just shop for makeup and try it on. And then I get a call and an offer, do you want to be a makeup artist at Fashion Fair makeup counter? I said, why not? And since I was a fashion print model, my face used to pop up. The image used to pop up in the paper or in the ads at that time. And so I had a familiar face. So when I started working for Fashion Fair, I met Mr. Johnson. They all flew in to Seattle. So I had the opportunity to meet them. At that time, they will fly the makeup artists to the next city
Gosh.
and do the fashion fair shows. Remember the
Yes.
modeling, the fashion shows? It was really a great time to appreciate art. It was a great time to appreciate, to know the business. See, I got in to understand the business because when I got hired, my father told me, because at the fashion fair, Leonard Lauder and Estee Lauder team used to come into the store. I was the only makeup artist in that store that was busy than anybody, including from Estee Lauder, Lancome, and
Okay.
prescriptions. Because you know why? I knew how to sell. And not only did I know how to sell, I had a personality.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in selling yourself, you have to be nice.
Yeah, definitely.
No one's entitled to do anything for
Right.
you. So
Right.
I learned that even at a small age. I'm representing a brand, but at the same time, I had to ask myself, and my father had to share with me, and my oldest brother, they had to share with me, what's in it for you?
Mm-hmm. And you know
Okay.
what's interesting that you mentioned fashion fair, because in the beauty industry, specifically related to makeup artistry, we, have seen, and I'm sure you probably heard and seen much more than I have, but like we saw this wave come in where people were like, there's no makeup for a woman of color. But I remember Fashion Fair was the brand that my mom used. And it's
Right.
like, how much were y'all really understanding that there was a brand out here before the Fenty and
Right.
before, you know what I mean? Like Fashion Fair is a staple. Like it was a household staple. That lip color, that foundation, like you
Right.
knew that that was a black owned brand and
Absolutely.
everybody in the neighborhood was wearing that if, they were a woman of color. So kind of
Right.
talk a little bit about that, because I don't even think that, like, I remember when they stopped doing the shows, but like that was the thing. The
Yes.
shows, that was a big, like a really, really
Thing.
big deal.
Get your tickets. I
Hmm.
I I even, let me tell you, I even was pregnant and I was still doing makeup
Oh my
for
goodness.
for fashion fair. I even flew in Seattle doing makeup for fashion fair, even for the fashion shows. I was so, when I tell you, they were the most beautiful models,
Hmm.
integrity. They were dignified.
Hmm.
They weren't doing what they are doing now. They carried themselves so high,
Hmm.
whether, I don't know how much they were getting paid, but you look like they were on a Gucci payroll, whatever, a
As they
Gucci
should.
model,
As they should. Yes.
on the highest top paid models. This is way before the supermodels.
Hmm.
Fashion fair been around for a long time, for a minute, even by me being inspired watching the Beverly Johnson. You had the Naomi Sims. You had just beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous women. You had Iman.
Hmm.
How could you not be inspired that,
Right.
you know what, one day this is what I'm going to do. This is where what inspired me to start modeling. We had Soul Train. We had beautiful um models as such as like Shaka Khan. We forget Diana Ross's. We had the Diana Ross. We had Anita Baker. Remember
Right.
when Anita Baker came out in the 80s? Her hair was
Yes.
always hooked
Always
up.
together. And everybody was trying to emulate that style.
Yes, the makeup, the face, her whole image,
Hmm.
we had it, even with
Yeah.
the men. We
Hmm.
had the Billy Williams, and we had, I mean, we had the Richard Roundtree.
Hmm.
We had all of that. So why not come into an industry that we had to let them know we are here? So that what inspired me by my parents pushing
Right.
me, pushing me. You can always be the first one. When I share with people that I am one of the first, they take it like, you want to do your history, do your research. There was a journey with me because it wasn't easy.
Hmm.
Now I had people that did want me to be in a luxurious job
Hmm.
or a store that they even came to the cities like Southside Chicago, Harlem,
Hmm.
your hometown.
Hmm.
How you think that they were getting these styles from? But they
Right.
didn't know how to sell to us.
Hmm.
This is where the diversity, inclusion, and all of this come in at. Learn how to sell when you see a beautiful Black person walking in to buy a product that's not Black owned.
Right. So
You
you
know,
were
so
in the beauty retail space for a number of years, and
right.
then you kind of transitioned from that being on set and doing shows and things of that nature, but then
Yeah,
you also helped other artists with
yes,
bringing events.
right. Let me tell you, I started modeling first
Okay.
because no one knew how to do my makeup. I
Okay.
started doing the behind the scenes and the fashion first. So it just so happened that I didn't know you could just walk in and say, hey, but what happened? The store manager approached me, a white guy approached me
Hmm.
and asked, hey, can you work for my store? That's how I got involved in knowing the
Okay.
business end. So what I had to do, what my father told me, my brother told me, was send it for you. Okay, you telling me all about Estee Lauder. You telling me all about Lancome. You telling me all about Elizabeth Art. Do they know who Viola Nicholson is?
Mm.
That was when I'm 22. I said, ooh, let me pull it back.
Right.
That when I had that aha moment.
Okay.
And so when I started seeing that, okay, I'm overworking myself, but I'm looking at my other friends, my coworkers who are white,
Mm.
getting paid more. That's when I stopped.
Okay.
So I was very bold in sharing and very I always used my voice. I never was silent about
Mm.
anything. I paid attention. It took me like 2 or 3, 4 years just to pay attention and say that okay, I know it's not me, but I have everybody here waiting for me. But they're getting paid their wages way more than mine. But they're clapping for me. Oh no, and I look better than them. No, I'm like,
Oh,
no, this is not the Viola Nicholson show. My nickname is Tootsie, so this is not Tootsie. I'm like, so, and so our generation. So remember, hip hop was
mhm.
becoming fast. So this is my generation. You had the Queen Latifah, the MC Light. You had the Rakim. We had voices on television now. Now it's time for them to. It's time for me to use my voice in this region. Now, how is it that every store knew who I was?
Mhm.
Knew me.
Mhm.
You have to pay for that. And that came from my oldest brother talking
Okay.
to me on the phone. They have to pay for your name. I got to the point where when acts came in, I didn't know that you can freelance outside. So it was a R&B singer
Mhm.
walking up to me and said, hey, I have a couple of young ladies that do you do makeup outside? And he said, well, you better get your money. That's when I said, okay, let me write down my address. This is where I live. When I tell you that opened up a whole different door for me.
Okay.
And I'm going into 93,
Okay.
94. So then people start calling me, okay, makeup girl, hey, okay, makeup girl. They was calling me that in that
Mhm.
area. So even after I made Fashion Fair, maintain them into the stores, but I had to go where the money was at. And then these other brands, major brands were pulling for me.
Okay.
They were pulling for me. And my brother always told me, go high as you can. And I always went high for my salary.
Mhm.
Because you look at it, they didn't have Black women or Black young ladies
Mhm.
at that time with my style.
Mhm.
Like
Okay.
the trainers they were hiring didn't know how to do makeup. So I used to ask every time they had a visit, they used to be so scared what I was going to ask. And good, because I used to ask Lena Lauder, how are they training, but they don't know how to do my makeup and they're getting paid to not know how to do my makeup?
Mhm.
He'll turn around and look at all these people and look at them. Because if you have 6 white women standing there and they all got this big ass blush streak, not blended, you got this Black girl who rocking
Uh-huh.
a Tony Braxton style.
Uh-huh.
You're going to stand out. And then you're looking at my numbers. What Jay-Z said, numbers don't lie.
Right.
Numbers don't lie. So I never cared about, okay, I'm gonna hook that brush, I'm gonna beat that brush. No, my sales were always more, but it wasn't easy. So I always share that to artists, retail artists, and makeup artists. It was not easy, and being outnumbered, but not out experienced.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So even when I was going to the training courses for makeup, even while I was in modeling, going taking those classes, going try to get certified and getting certified, I knew more than an instructor. Same goes for nursing.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only one in my class that were Black,
Mm-hmm.
that were passing all the tests. So including in the makeup, they didn't offer those type of courses and classes. And then that's when like the Lauders and the bigger brands started creating these positions, educational trainers,
Right.
but they didn't have Black executives. And this, I'm gonna go back to it. That's when I got on with Bobby Brown.
Okay.
See, I started in Bobby Brown in the mid 90s. In the mid 90s. And when I was approached to work for Bobby, and then at that time we didn't have Wi-Fi, we didn't have social media. We saw everything on Oprah, Reggie Williams. We saw everything on Oprah, Essence Magazine. I started hearing the name Sam Fine.
Okay.
So what we used to do, get the magazine, you used to read the credits at the bottom.
Right.
I never saw Sam Fine's face at that time until he launched that book. But what I used to do, I used to call all of these agencies and how can I meet them? How can I fly and sit on the show? That's how I got in contact with Reggie.
Okay.
That was in the 90s. That's how I got in contact with the Fran Coopers, all in the 90s. I would read the credits because I knew one day I was going to meet them. And I also knew what retail in at that time taught me, do your own events. Do your own events. I saw how they were doing the events wrong. You know what I'm saying? Where you learn from others' mistakes and why it's not working. My route is different from theirs. My clientele is different from theirs. I represent this. I just knew how to sell the brand better than the trainers and the educators and creators.
So you transitioned out of retail and then you started doing events right after that? Before you kind of got into the film and television space?
Yes. And I was still doing independent films out of Portland and Seattle.
Okay.
I was still doing photo shoots still. And so, but what completely changed me was when I moved to Chicago. When I moved to Chicago, and then I had my son when he was going to school. So I'm a single parent. So I had to pull back. I made enough for me to stay off for like a whole year, you know, and I'm a single parent. I'm looking at my child. He needs me at home. So what you going to sacrifice?
Right.
He comes first. Our kids come first because we don't want any child, when you take them out, they don't know how to behave. They get loud and they run. They need home training. So I took a year off just for that.
Okay.
Then, but I was still doing makeup at home. People were knocking on my door. So that's when, again, my brother, Otis Nicholson, he said, create your brand. So I came up with a title like Natural Looks. When it got all my papers, what I need for Portland, Oregon at that time, I used to pass on my cards. But one thing about Portland at that time and Seattle, they would drive up, LA, they would drive up to see me. And then too, people wanted to see me eat. They wanted to see me pay my bills.
Right.
Again, I was always getting calls to do either the after party at the concerts or they come to my house, the dancers or whatever come to my house. Only reason they respected that I had a child. So then you want to fast forward to Chicago. Okay, Chicago, I still had to get some type of employment. I get a call from one of Bobby Brown executives. Bobby Brown was new to Chicago. So when I had got the call and I moved, it was a whole different transition. No one knew me in Chicago, but what I stood out was that I had worked on the West Coast for already 20 some years, if that makes sense. I was already seasoned, but and two, I was already flying to New York to even meet artists like the Sam Fines, Atlanta, looking at that region. That was another thing. People weren't flying anywhere to learn how different regions and different cultures, how to present yourself or to get the knowledge. So by the time I came to Chicago, I was already established in my profession.
Okay.
But I didn't have a clientele. I was new.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I didn't look like anyone out here
Okay.
at all. Because when I came here, they were still on the Chicago style. Now, Chicago is a hard market. My hometown is hard. I haven't been in Chicago since I was a little girl. So coming back as an adult with a what inspired me to come, I knew that I was going to be creating a masterclass for Reggie Wells. I spoke that out back in the 90s. So when I met Reggie had no idea what was a masterclass. What girl, he'll go, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. And who baby is that? I said, it's mine. How old are you? And I tell him I'm grown. So he said, I remember you used to call me out in that store. And I said, by all that makeup, get out of my face. So we became really close and we hit it off when he met me.
Okay.
And then he started seeing me walking downtown or leaving from the store or doing events with Bobby Brown. He'll come and ask me like, oh, so you do makeup too? I thought you were just playing with me and lying to me, girl. And then he started inviting me to the Harpo studio. But I had created relationships with Oprah's producers who were just beautifully. And then I was inspired. You have more Black, beautiful people in this city. But then you also have whole rainbow beautiful shades and different personalities. So that was another thing that attracted me to be here and make a difference. At that time, we had Soft Sheen and they had I think it was a Soft Sheen, but they didn't have anything where you can get the brands to come together like the luxurious brands, to come together and create this big platform. So that's what I've done. I challenged myself and I achieved that. So when I created a masterclass, no one knew it was me. They didn't know that that was me doing a personal appearance and putting Reggie Wells in those stores. They didn't know that was me doing the PR work while I was still working. And while I'm still working in these stores, I'm grabbing clients and sharing to them about this class. And no one ever, at that time, makeup artists weren't getting to be independent or the public weren't able to get close to them. They were so exclusive to that client. And also Reggie Wells used to put and share the brands, what he was using on the show. So I asked him, okay, and I'm looking at the beautiful women, people at Oprah's show, and I'm like, okay, you put in Oprah is actually making people securing their jobs. So I asked him, well, my family told me, what's in it for you if you're doing all of this? What are they doing for you? And I asked that to Reggie. Like, what are they doing for you? Okay, they selling everything because in the training, I would sit on the class in the courses and listen to them. Reggie Wells used this on Oprah. Okay, it's sold out. Everything's sold out, but he's not generating anything from it. He's wearing. Okay, but what are you doing? But you securing this job. So that what made me challenge me. Okay, how many numbers they need to do at this trend show, or how much they need to do at this beauty event? Okay, let me take over Chicago with this. Not say it's a flex, it's to open doors that we are here. It don't take all what they were doing for us to win, for them to see that we are here.
Now I'm gonna cut you off because we could literally have talked for an hour, but we got like 5 minutes left already.
It's a lot.
But I have to ask you 2 questions before this 5-minute wrap up. I see BLB on your shirt. Can you briefly explain what that is?
Black Legends in Beauty. Black Legends in Beauty. And let me tell you, I was so inspired going back to the Bobby, looking at Cindy Watson back in the day, in essence, being an executive in these lauder brands. That inspired me. Looking at the Sam Fines, looking at the Karen DuPage, Elena George, who does Good Morning America, looking at Oscar James, looking at all of these fine people. And it's time for us to start celebrating them. It's time for us to start celebrating you. Looking at the Tanel, Janice, and Denise, Marietta, like so many of these artists have no idea who these people are. You got Dave Jamar, who's throwing down in hair. Then you have Matthew Jordan Smith, Wicked, with
that camera.
photography. You know, then that's what inspired me. All of them inspired me to come out with makeup brushes. So you want to find what makes magic for you, what makes you, and then looking at my mama and my father and just seeing that we have it, but how are we going to utilize our gifts? How are we going to celebrate? We shouldn't have to wait on anyone to celebrate us. We have a whole community out here, you know, and then I have my white friends. I have my Middle Eastern friend, my Asian friends. We come together. We all educate each other who we are.
So can you give us the website for BLB?
Oh,
so we can know how to follow that up?
Yes, Instagram. Go to BLB_collective. That website is coming up soon because I need everyone bio and headshot. So we started building it slow, but we are getting ready. I am getting ready to do a brunch soon. And then you had AJ Crimson. So we have some greats, and we just lost Reggie Wells. So you give people their flowers while they're here. You tell them that you love them. You tell them that I am inspired, because so many get intimidated. Don't get intimidated. Be inspired. You know, I am so inspired when I am around greatness. You know, even those who aren't on yet, I am inspired. And this is why I continue going to the stores. This is why I continue going to certain events. Some things I won't attend to just because it's do you see me? Do you know who I am? Right. I don't give a you know, that's not going to inspire me. You know, if we have not learned anything from this pandemic, to be humble, to appreciate, love on the now, and to give and be kind. And I think
how can people get in contact with you specifically outside of BLB?
Yes, they can get in contact with me on that Instagram. Instagram, social media. I'm redoing my website. I had that website up in 2007, and I looked at it. I'm like, oh, that is not me no more. So I'm redoing it. So I'm redoing that violanicholson.com. I'm redoing because I'm relaunching again, because I'm adding more my favorite things. Like even with you, I'm adding more like you, one of my favorite people. I want to add that with my Brushes by Viola site. Same goes for my girl, Glow Getter, Angela, with her lip glosses on why I use certain products, including Bobbi Brown. You know, you got Jane Vincent. You know, Bobbi Brown got Jones Road Beauty. I still use my people products. Then that's some lyrics. So in order for us to even grow even bigger, we have to share. Who inspire us, what products we use, what makes us go even further. So that's what I'm on right now. Someone asked me, so Viola, what's next for you? Well, I mean, you know, I'm in my 50s.
Well, we're about to time out. So I'm going to have Miss Viola do a little clip to kind of give y'all a teaser, but I'm going to put all of her information at the end of this broadcast, because we literally could have went another hour. Like this is so good. It's so much of a wealth of information. And before it just blinks out, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and letting us just pick your brain, and you just pour into us completely. Thank you. And I'm going to show